staying pretty high level with our product. And, you know, we do have a lot of different information for installers, engineers, architects, you know, new installers, experienced installers, you know, a lot of sales staff as well. I just want to let everyone know ahead of time that this is being recorded. So RCP will make this presentation available to anyone who would like to listen to it again on their own time. So I'm going to jump right into just what a gravity retaining wall is, which is kind of what ReCon's niche is for the most part. So as we jump right into it here. So a gravity retaining wall is a retaining wall that does not require tiebacks or geogrid reinforcing. It relies solely on the mass of the blocks to hold back the soil. Now, ReCon has some of the most block depth in the industry right now. Our blocks range from 24 inches deep all the way up to 84 inches deep in our standard forms. And they can go up to, you know, 132 inches deep, which is, you know, 11 feet deep from face to tail in some cases. And we'll see a wall that requires a block that's that deep. Our face sizes are 48 inches long by 16 inches tall. And again, our depths vary from 24 inches deep from face to tail. Go through the slide here, from face to tail all the way up to 84. Our blocks are solid concrete. There is no rebar reinforcing. The only metal that we have in our blocks are the galvanized lifting loops that are used to install our products. They're made of wet cast concrete. It's a durable 4,000 PSI minimum. I think the producers here in Minnesota Interlock, in conjunction with Rochester Concrete Products, they're making a DOT mix that I believe is at about a minimum of 4,000 PSI with 5 to 7% air entrainment. All these numbers mean is that it's a very durable product, you know, versus a standard dry cast unit. It is going to last a lot longer through a lot more of those freeze-thaw cycles. So what is the advantage of a gravity wall? Well, the main advantage is the base to height ratio. Most retaining walls that require geogrid reinforcing, they have a base to height ratio of about 60 to 80%. Now what that means is a 10-foot tall wall that requires geogrid reinforcing is going to require at least 6 to 8 foot long geogrids. Again, depending on the soils, depending on the surcharge and the back slopes and the toe slopes. A gravity wall can get down to as low as 35%, which is on the very low end. Typical is between 40 and 50% of the wall height. So what this allows our product to do, and most gravity wall systems, is to be able to tuck that retaining wall further into the construction cut, closer to the property line, and really maximize that usable space at the toe of the wall. This is a construction photo from the Maple Grove Hospital. They have a handful of retaining walls around there right now, and I believe they might be adding some more here in the future. You can see that this is a vertical construction cut. Most sites will not allow a construction cut like this, just from the soils perspective. But what this allowed the installer to do was really push this retaining wall as close to the property line as it could, which is actually the silt fence up top, and really, again, maximize that usable space out front. Now, if you don't think you've ever installed a gravity retaining wall, you probably have. Most of the small block, the dry cast units, whether it's 4-inch, 6-inch, 8 inches tall, if you built these things up to about 4 feet or less and didn't use reinforcing measures, whether it's a tie back or geogrid reinforcing, you've essentially built a gravity wall. You are relying solely on the mass of that retaining wall product to hold back the soil. Now, as you stack up those blocks up to 5 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet, what you're trying to ask that retaining wall product to do is hold back a lot more soil pressure. So in order to do so, that retaining wall product needs to be a lot heavier. Now, a small block system, they weigh about 80 to 90 pounds. They are just not heavy enough to resist those overturning forces on a wall that's taller than 4 feet tall or 5 feet tall. So we need to use deeper blocks, which is where ReCon comes in. So here's just a quick visual of that maximizing the usable real estate out front. This is a very tall wall. I know a lot of you have not installed walls this tall. This is a 21-foot tall design height, 24-inch deep units at the face, and then about a 15-foot long geogrid. You know, it's about a 70% base to height ratio. You can see how long the grids are. We've tucked them right up to the back of the construction cut. This is a pretty standard, geogrid wall. And the facing component obviously is ReCon for this presentation, but it can be anything. It can be rockwood. It can be any other retaining wall product that's out there, as long as that geogrid reinforcing is present. Now, with base to height ratios as low as 35%, we can use our big, heavy, massive wet cast blocks as the resisting mass for these retaining walls up to 20 feet tall, 21 feet tall. Now you can see how much further back we pushed that wall. We essentially went from a 15-foot long base to height ratio down to 7 feet. So we gained about 7 to 8 feet out in front of this wall. For most homeowners, that space is not going to be as dramatic, but for people with really tight property lines where they basically want to come in there and perform surgery on these job sites and maximize the usable real estate out front, the gravity system is definitely going to be the way to go. So how tall can we go? With sandy soils, with no surcharge loading up top, no toe slope out front, no back slope, and a standard NCMA design, with our traditional 84-inch deep units, which is our deepest unit that we make out of our standard forms, we can go up to about 21, 22 feet tall, unreinforced. That's a very tall gravity wall. For the most part, a lot of the projects are kind of in that, 6 to maybe 15-foot wall height. That's kind of our sweet spot. We can add a ton of value versus other traditional retaining wall products. How tall have we gone in the past? This is a 32-foot tall, unreinforced gravity wall that was built in New Hampshire less than a year ago. Lots of engineering, lots of very deep blocks, especially the 132-inch deep base block at the base. I would say this is the upper limit currently of our retaining wall system. So anything under 32 feet, we can definitely add a lot of value to your project. You can see here that they have our 6.5-inch capstone on top of this wall, and they have mounted a pedestrian railing, not just to the capstone, but to the block below it, to add the resisting mass for the overturning forces of the pedestrian railing. Now, traditionally, since a gravity wall system is designed to maximize the usable real estate out front, we want to tuck those walls as close to the construction cut, as close to the property line as we can. So most of these gravity walls are going to be built from the face. You're not going to have access or enough room for equipment behind the face of the wall. And if you're building a wall that's taller than, say, 12 feet or so, some of your equipment might not be tall enough to reach the top courses. So in a very unique situation, this contractor had to bury the front of the wall to kind of build themselves a ladder so they could access the top courses with their excavators. Just kind of a unique, a unique feature or a unique issue to have with a tall gravity wall. Now, once this wall is completed, the contractor is going to remove all that soil out in front of it, and now you're left with a nearly 20-foot tall wall. I don't want to discourage anyone by showing all these giant walls. I know we like to brag about them here at ReCon, but our product looks just as comfortable on a job site as it does in a backyard. Now here's our rustic texture. This is actually from a project in Norway. They have left this product unstained. And we'll talk about staining here in a little bit. Here's another small wall. It's about a 4-course tall wall, 5.33 feet in height. I believe they have used our steps or capstones through the step area to gain access from the driveway up to the yard. Again, they left this this granite texture unstained. You can stain it to whatever color you want using a water-based or a latex-based or even an acid etch stain. With all the road salts coming in off the road on the driveway, this product is not going to break down, as we have seen with some older, smaller dry cast units in the past. And in walls like this, they can be designed relatively cheap. They can be installed relatively quickly. You know, 1 or 2 to 3 man crew can easily install this wall in a day. They're not lifting up these blocks. You know, they weigh about 1,400 pounds on the low end, up to about 4,100 pounds on the high end. So moving along, reinforced retaining walls. You know, we have already kind of talked about these just a little bit. You know, a large portion of our product or of our walls are installed using reinforcing geogrid. The facing component is then our 24-inch deep unit, which is our smallest unit. And again, the base to height ratios for these walls are between 60 and 80% of the wall height. How tall can we go with these? Our tallest to date is a 36-foot tall wall in Stillwater, Minnesota. It's sitting behind an apartment complex out there. This is our limestone texture, stained to match, you know, the local colors, the local natural stone of the area. They do have a capstone up on top. This is actually a tiered wall system. And what's different about gravity walls versus geogrid walls is we're not really trying to maximize the usable real estate out in front of the wall. We're trying to push this wall almost further away from the property line to maximize the usable space out front. In doing so, we have then gained access to the back of these walls so we can stack our blocks up fairly easily. Now what you see here is a skid steer that does not have any forks on the front, but it has something what we call a picking device. This picking device can easily pick up, you know, a 24 or 39-inch deep block from the inventory pile and place it on the wall face relatively easily. You're not going to have an extra guy on the ground unchaining and rechaining blocks all the time from an excavator. And you can have one guy in a skid steer, one guy on the wall face. Those two guys can stack a ton of blocks in a day. Obviously, reinforced walls are nothing new. This is a picture from the Rockwoods website. This is a very tall, reinforced small block wall. They've got a tiered system out here. Again, you know, a reinforced wall is simply a concrete facing. It doesn't really matter what it is out front, with reinforcing geogrid sandwiched in between the blocks. They're very stable. They're relatively inexpensive to build from a product perspective. They do take a little bit more time, a little bit more labor to both compact that reinforced fill and place it. And yeah, you know, we do a lot of these walls as well. I just kind of wanted to show you what was out there. So what about our textures, top of wall options, and fence blocks? So Minnesota is a unique ReCon market in that we are headquartered here. RCP, Interlock, they actually offer all 5, now 6 of our textures to the market here. Le County Limestone is the one that they carry the most of. This is the product that is most widely in stock for them. Now, you're going to see a lot of stained walls out here. Our product is going to be delivered to your job site as cast gray. It will be up to you, the installer, you, the architect, you, the owner of a project, to furnish the staining yourselves. A lot of the installers like to stain our walls. We do have a staining guide available that has product recommendations for everyone. You know, staining is one thing that's kind of unique. It's, you know, subject to the eye of it's in the eye of the beholder, excuse me, to where, you know, from one customer to the next, they might not like the exact same stain. So I think if you're going to start staining your own walls, it would be in your best interest to, you know, get a sample, stain up a block that's going to be below grade maybe, and see if your customer would prefer that color over another one. North Shore Granite, I would say across our system worldwide, this is our most popular texture. Most of the time this is installed as cast gray and is not stained traditionally. Our rustic is our 8-inch stack stone coursing. You know, these are still full face blocks. These are 48 by 16. And the depths again range from 24 from base to tail all the way up to 84. But this one just looks like it's an 8-inch stacked stone look. I would say this texture, more than any other one that we have, eliminates picture framing, where you really can't tell where one block starts and the other ones begin. It kind of just looks like one big monolithic stacked stone wall. Weathered edge, it's fastly becoming our most popular texture right now. It can be stained in, you know, a limestone texture or limestone color, excuse me. It can be stained in I've seen it stained red. I've seen it stained dark gray to match natural striations in granite. I would say weathered edge, rustic, granite, these are, you know, kind of special timing for RCP. Again, the limestone is going to be the one that they have in stock mostly. And then we have Old World as our final ReCon texture here. It's a smooth face with the chamfered edges all the way around. I would say a lot of architects really like this. This is a project in Minneapolis along the Greenway, the Elon Apartments, if you've ever been by there. Underneath the Twin Stadium is actually where the Cedar Lake Trail starts as well, or it doesn't start, but it is. There's a lot of Old World ReCon walls along that entire length of that trail. So if you're ever out there, stop down and take a look. And finally, new for RCP and Interlock is the Glacier wall, the Glacier texture. They are the only ones who have this currently. It's going to be a 3-piece system with all three being 48 inches wide, 36 inches wide, and then 24 inches wide. Will kind of complete the set. You can see the gaps that are in between the blocks are only gaps in shadows. The blocks are still touching. I would say this is one of our more natural looking stones currently. I think it's going to be really good. This one's actually stained, maybe a 1 or 2 part stain. Again, it can be stained whatever color you'd like. I would say, contact your local RCP rep for pricing and availability for all of these textures, for all of these block depths. And finally, here's just a little bit of staining information here. This is that Stillwater project. I like this photo because it shows all the different stages of a ReCon wall being stained. You can see in the foreground here we've got an unstained section. In the middle ground they've got the light kind of yellowish base coat going on, and then behind it they're following it up with a darker coat to really add some depth to this. Obviously this is a very large wall. They've got some JLG equipment to reach the top of the wall. But for the most part, 1 to 2 part stains is going to be what you're going to see on a lot of our walls. Like I said, we do have a ReCon staining guide that is available. We do have some products that we have seen used in the past, from Sherwin-Williams to TK. At the end of the day, any concrete stain, if you can stain it on a horizontal surface, you can probably stain it on a vertical surface, maybe just a different application method, whether it's an airless sprayer or a rag or something. I think the most important part about staining is if you're going to do it yourself, you need to make sure your first step is to, at a minimum, power wash the wall. These products are made in steel forms that have, form release agents on them. They still will remain on the face of the blocks for some time, depending on how quickly they were made or from how long ago they were made. So whether it's just a simple power wash or maybe even a muriatic acid solution to really, score up the face, really get all those oils off, it'll really accept your stain a lot better. And then, refer to your staining supplier for sealing information. I've seen some sealers that are supposed to go on first before the color is applied, which is kind of odd to me, but most of the time it's the color and the sealer on top of everything. So just make sure you contact your local concrete supplier and your staining supplier, for information on sealing. We have seen, rarely, walls being stained with acid etch staining. I don't have a lot of experience with this. I think the result is pretty cool, depending on what kind of stain you use. This is actually a project out in, I believe, Wyoming. What's unique about this wall is, aside from the unique color, is we have the plinth block. This is just an aesthetically different block. The architect wanted little snow caps on top of this wall all the way throughout the length of this wall, which is many hundreds of feet. They wanted to break up the monolithic look of the brown face with these small snow caps. And if you go on our website, reconwalls.com, we do have a lot of pictures of this project, and it looks pretty cool, especially after a nice fresh snowfall. All right, top of wall options. We've got a couple different top of wall options, and it all depends on what the customer is looking for. Our traditional top of wall option is our top block. You can see here it's a 5-inch deep scoop out using our 24-inch deep unit from face to tail. This will allow you to bring material up to the face, up to at least the 4-inch face, whether it's sod, landscape material, rock, mulch, whatever you need, asphalt, even concrete. You can bring it pretty much all the way up to the face. Now, if you're planning on mounting a railing to our top blocks, our 24-inch deep units are just not quite heavy enough to withstand the overturning forces as required by the IBC code. We do, however, have a 39-inch deep top block from face to tail that is heavy enough. So when you mount, whether you plate mount it or you have holes cast through the block to slide your fence post in there, a 39-inch deep top block will be heavy enough to withstand the overturning forces as recommended by the IBC code. Here's kind of that 39-inch deep top block in action. This is at an airport in Texas. Obviously, this is a commercial job site. They wanted this hand railing, this pedestrian railing, to really be nice and strong and sturdy. And all they needed to do was just plate mount this thing to our 39-inch deep top blocks. Residentially, I don't think that this homeowner in Norway was following the International Building Code. I don't really think that they needed to be honest with you. I believe they have mounted these to the top blocks below them, which I'm pretty sure are 24 inches deep. I don't think that they're going to have a problem with overturning. However, I don't think that they can get 2,000 people up on this patio pushing on this wall, pushing on this fence at any given time. Here's our top block with a fence actually behind the wall unit. For the most part, these fences are not going to impact the design of our retaining walls. Obviously, if you have a wind-loaded fence, you know, a 6 or 8 foot tall wooden fence or something that's going to catch 100% of the wind, obviously our retaining walls might need to be designed for that. But for the most part, chain link fences, pedestrian hand railings that are not mounted to our walls, they do not really impact the design at all. Capstones. Here in Minnesota, you guys again have a unique opportunity. You guys have 2 different capstone heights. There's a 6.5 inch tall and an 8 inch tall capstone. The standard one is going to be 6.5 inches tall. We have done a lot of amphitheaters in this state. You know, a lot of small walls. It's kind of a traditional just accent capstone like you would see on a dry cast small block unit. It is 26 inches wide, so it's 2 inches wider than our 24 inch deep unit. You can push this thing all the way forward to have a 2 inch overhang on the front. You can push it flush with the face. It's really up to the customer. Here's actually Trinity School. Again, here in Minnesota, they have an 8 inch capstone. The architect, they wanted to match the 8 inch coursing of our rustic. So the 8 inch capstone was used here. And this was just stained with one base coat, 2 base coats of just one color of stain. Our 6.5 capstone is actually underneath the ADA requirements for step heights. So 6.5 inches is under what they require. So we can use our capstones as steps through our walls, something that we have seen quite a lot of. There's a ton of pictures on our website if you'd like to check that out. The final option is the full high cap. This is a full height, 16 inches tall capstone, which has textures both on the face of the wall and on the back side and on the top. So when you have sloping grades like you see here, whether it's a driveway or a sidewalk or even just a sloping yard, instead of having to step down 16 inches at a time, you can keep this grade nice and steady all the way down and still pick up texture on the back side of your wall. You can see here that they have actually mounted a fence to this. I believe they just kind of cored into these blocks and slid these posts right down into there. In line with our fence, with our full high cap, you know, we do have double-sided fence units that do not have texture on top. This picture kind of has it all, really. In the background, we have a near vertical gravity wall. Our walls have a built-in batter of 3.6 degrees or 1 inch per course traditionally. In order to meet the abutment and the vertical brick face, the contractor in the field cut the back off of the tongue to slide that block an extra inch forward, and it allowed them to build a vertical wall. You know, this wall was designed with vertical batter, so it was not a last-minute thing. In the foreground here, you can see a full high cap. This is actually on top of many different fence blocks. So on the back side of the railing side of this wall, there's also texture on there as well. Now, one thing that is kind of cool about our double-sided fence blocks is that we can cast holes into them, and we can attach them with rebar and grout to either a 60-inch deep unit or a 72-inch deep unit. And this 3 or 4 block system can be used as an integral vehicle barrier. It can meet the IBC code of 6,000 pound impact or an ASHTO TL1 of 13,500 pounds. So here's a project down in Iowa. It kind of has it all, really. We have a standard retaining wall out front. They've got fence blocks with capstones as you kind of walk around up to the top of the parking lot. And then as you're in the parking lot, you're looking at the back side of a fence block with a capstone on top. But what you don't know is that 2 or 3 courses of these are attached together with a moment slab block below grade. And if you were to run your car into this, it will act as a vehicle barrier and you will not go over to the face. You will not go over the face of the wall down to the lower parking lot. What this integral guardrail does is, again, not only maximizes, it actually maximizes the usable space behind the wall as opposed to the space out in front that we have for a gravity wall. A guardrail system out front, whether it's a post and beam or another one, is going to take up space in between the wall back and the curb, and they just didn't have that room here, so they wanted to make the wall system the guardrail system, and we definitely have those options as well. One of our showpiece projects was actually in New Jersey. This is a wedding venue that can hold up to, I believe, 7 weddings at one time. They have weathered edge texture, unstained. They have capstones. They have freestanding blocks all the way around. They have column blocks, which is the little spires that you see there. And not only are these double-sided fence blocks, but these are also guardrail systems. So any of these vehicles that can hit these walls are going to not go over into the water. These are very complicated projects, lots of pre-construction planning, lots of pre-bid planning, a lot of in-the-field cutting of blocks. And if you've ever had to cut, a 90-pound dry cast unit, it doesn't take too long. If you're thinking about cutting one of our units, it can take a significant amount of time unless you have fitting blocks. I think most of our big block competitors do not have contractor-friendly fitting blocks that allow you to easily modify the blocks. If you've ever had to cut from face to tail, either a 24-inch deep unit or a 39-inch deep unit, you know that it'll take a ton of time. So if you know that you're going to have cuts in the field, or you anticipate having to do cuts in the field, ask your RCP rep for some fitting blocks. We do have, again, 24 and 39-inch deep fitting blocks, and our full high caps come with a fitting insert as well. So you can cut those blocks around radiuses on the tops of your walls. Wait for my computer to catch up here. Sorry, guys. I'm looking at the audience view, and there's quite a bit of a lag here going on. Okay. All right. Installation equipment and tools. I did want to quickly talk about installing our product. It's really no different than any other retaining wall product. Obviously, it's much larger. But I did want to talk quickly about preparing for your project. Final stamp plans on walls that are greater than 4 or 5 feet are required here in the state of Minnesota. Obviously, taller walls that are unreinforced with gravity units, they're holding back a lot of soil. So we really want to make sure that these walls are engineered. RCP has a lot of really good relationships with really good retaining wall design engineers here in Minnesota. So they'll be able to provide you a nice, good quality stamp shop drawings that you as an installer can build off of. You can have confidence that the retaining wall that you are installing is is designed for the situation that it's being asked to be in. Pre-construction meetings are also really important. Constant communication with your RCP rep is going to be really important, especially as you start to receive materials on your job site. We can only get about 32 to 34 blocks on the truck at any given time. They weigh a lot, so we can't get a lot of square feet on each truck. It's not like getting 500 or 600 square feet of small block delivered. You're only going to get about 160 square feet delivered per truck, and they take up a lot. They take up a lot of room. So kind of game planning with your sales rep on what blocks you want to install that day or for the next couple of days, and coordinating with the interlock dispatcher so you can get the blocks that you want on site when you want them is going to be also pretty important. What about crew size and equipment? You know, labor was a little hard to find earlier before, you know, the events of the last few weeks. At that time, we were seeing a lot of crews downsize from, you know, 5, 6 guys down to 2 to 3. ReCon, obviously, since it's a machine step product, is, you know, it can take a lot less guys to install it. Let's just put it that way. You know, one laborer, one machine operator, they can pretty much install a ReCon wall all day long. From an equipment perspective, you know, at least an excavator, whether it's a mini X or a larger one to pick up our bigger blocks. This is going to help you not only dig your base trench, but also set your first course as well. A skid steer to bring blocks from the inventory pile down to the wall site. Same with, you know, any backfill material or aggregates is going to be important. And then any compaction equipment. You know, compaction behind our walls, like any retaining wall, is going to be tremendously important. It's especially important on the geogrid wall, where you're really relying on that geogrid soil connection to add stability to your wall system. What about moving these blocks? You know, our smallest block, I think it's a half capstone, or even a full capstone, is about 475 pounds. Our biggest block is an 84-inch deep base unit. It's almost 4,200 pounds. So knowing how big of a block you're going to have to move with your equipment ahead of time is going to be very important. For the most part, a mini excavator like this can easily pick up a 1,400 pound, you know, 24-inch deep block. They might be able to pick up a 2,000 pound, 39-inch deep block with the arm up against the cab. But as soon as you go to extend that arm out to lay your base block in there, your hydraulics might be a little bit overtaxed, and now you're coming into a safety issue. So having a piece of equipment on site that is strong enough to pick up your largest block with ease is going to be a really important step, you know, during your bidding. You know, maybe you have to rent it or borrow it from another landscaper or something. Whatever you need to do, you know, do not have undersized equipment on your job sites. RCP makes blocks with fork pockets in the back. These will fit a standard, you know, 4-inch wide skid steer fork. You can easily pick these things up from behind, move them from off the truck to your inventory pile, from your inventory pile down to the wall site. It just makes it a lot easier to move blocks around the job site. We've talked a little bit about the picking device. This is it's a universal attachment for either a Bobcat or a Case or Caterpillar. It has a very hard T1 steel hook on the front. We have tested this hook to about 65,000 pounds of force. It's a very high carbon product. It's not going to wear. Our older ones tended to kind of wear out a little bit. This new one does not. I can definitely get you in contact with the guy who makes these. He's out of Rice, Minnesota, if you want. A picture of this thing. Oh, we got some lag here again. Sorry about that. Yeah, so here's just another picture of that picking device. I did want to quickly talk about our lifting loops. You know, they are galvanized, solid R anchor. There is a right and a wrong way to pick these things up. You know, whether it's a pick hook or a clevis or a strap, these are all good things to use. Never oversized hooks or even binding hooks, like for binding chains. Those should not be used. If you're going to be transporting blocks across your job site suspended, we have to recommend that you use a cable or even a chain with a cable extension on it. You know, something to kind of add a little bit of extra bounce to this. If you have, a 45-inch deep block that's hanging from a chain, and you're walking this thing all the way across your job site with an excavator, you're adding a lot of dynamic loads to that R anchor. They're not really designed to do that. So you're putting yourselves and your crew at a little bit more risk if you're going to be doing that if you don't do it with a stretching cable. Capstones and full high caps, since they do not have lifting loops on top, we do have a Kenco lifting clamp that we can sell. I know I think PaveTech makes one that we've seen used for capstones. Our full high caps are about 1,500 pounds. I'm not too sure of any other lifting system other than Kenco. Maybe there's some out there that can easily grab onto and lift that weight of block. So most of our big time installers have their own. I think you can either rent these or purchase these from RCP or from ReCon as well. Hand tools and electronics, basically the same tools that you're going to use to install small blocks, you're going to use with our big block system. Laser transits, levels, string lines, marking paint, backpack blowers, kind of clean off all the rocks off the top of the wall, 14-inch diamond bladed chop saw. Honestly, the whole process is very similar to installing small blocks. You dig your base trench, you set your leveling pad material, you level your base blocks. The only real difference is that if you take a 5-pound dead blow hammer and you smash one of these 1,400 pound blocks to try to get it to level in, it's not really going to go anywhere. So now your excavator bucket is going to become your hammer. And if you've got a guy in the controls in the cab with some pretty heavy hands, they can take all of your base course leveling work, prep work, and kind of throw it out the window. So constant communication from the guy down in the trench to the guy up in the machine. Push down on this corner, push down on this corner. Gently tap the back, gently tap the front. You're going to be spending a lot more time preparing your leveling pad than you'd have traditionally with smaller blocks, just because you really don't have a lot of room for error when it comes to setting that block down on the ground. We do have a ReCon tools checklist. It is available on our website. You can send me an email, ask your RCP rep for it if you would like a copy of it. Just some simple hand tools, some things that you may not traditionally have. As always, safety is our #1 priority. Just general protective equipment, fall protection if you need it, if you're on a larger job site. One thing I do want to really mention is, when you're moving blocks across the job site, whether it's on a skid steer, stacked up 2 or 3 tall, or suspended from a cable or a chain with a cable, just always be aware of stacked and suspended blocks. Again, these things weigh 1,400 pounds, so you get one tipped over on you or falls on you, it can be a pretty bad afternoon. I've had numerous close calls in my career, and luckily I walked away from all of them. So anything you can do to not be under your blocks or not be in front of a moving stack is going to be tremendously important. I do have just a couple case studies for you guys to really highlight the value that ReCon can add to your project and your customers. This is a small block wall failure, not a very tall wall, here in Minnesota. I don't think the wall product failed. That's rarely the case with a retaining wall failure. For the most part, it's poor compaction behind the wall, improper water management. Sometimes these things are just not installed the way that they need to be. In this case, this is a small block wall with geogrids. You can see they have some electrical boxes that are right in front of the wall. And I believe the property line is very, very near into that tree line. Now, the installer was able to tear out the small blocks and leave a vertical construction cut because there's still geogrids holding back the soil. There's obviously a lot of roots in there that are helping out as well. But this was basically a surgical site. You know, the contractor was allowed to come in, perform surgery, excavate as little as they could in order to fit those 24-inch deep base blocks down in that trench. You know, if you were going to build this thing, if you're going to rebuild this with traditional small blocks and grid, or even big blocks and grid, you have to excavate an extra 2, 3, 4, 5 feet into this hill, you know, compromising the trees, possibly getting into the property line, getting into other utility lines. The gravity system really allowed them to perform surgery, like I said before. Here's the finished product. They decided to put the fence behind the wall, so they didn't require 39-inch deep top blocks. They used our full face limestone texture. Same thing with the cast in place wall. This is a very short wall. I believe this thing was, you know, it could be 100 years old, who knows. It began to fail. You've got 2 adjacent properties. You know, again, not having to over excavate for geogrids and really having, you know, the ability to perform surgery on these job sites is one of the values that a ReCon gravity system can add. They were able to excavate as little as they needed to, stack up the blocks, put your 1 foot of rock behind there, compact it, repave it, bring asphalt pretty much all the way up to the face of the wall here. These are top blocks up front or on top. Here's another gravity wall in Minnesota. This is a property on a lake. During construction, I was out here taking a look at this thing, trying to game plan with the RCP rep and the installer. You can see how close the neighbor's property is. It's about, you know, it's pretty much right at that tape up top. So there really isn't a lot of room for geogrids. This is about a 12-foot tall wall right at the foundation there. So you need a 60-inch deep base block, to, you know, based on the soils and based on the loading up top. The installer was able to excavate a little bit further into the hill. Install the 60s. You can see they've got a, you know, a large excavator. They did use our weathered edge texture. You know, again, 12 feet up at the top where the house is there, stepping all the way down to the lake. I've not been here. I haven't seen photos of this project in its completed state, but from here it looks pretty dang good to me. You can see how close to the neighbor's yard they had to make their construction cut. You know, they're only a couple feet behind that. Water applications, you know, being a wet cast, you know, air and train durable product, we do a lot of water applications. You know, we can handle a lot of freeze thaw cycles. Again, this is a project here in Plymouth, Minnesota. Failing walls, you know, again, not the block's fault, but probably poor water management, a lot of settlement, you know, just not a lot of long-term forethought for this wall. Our installer came in there, ripped out all the stuff, laid a competent base course, competent leveling pad, backfilled with free draining stone, knowing that water was going to get both behind these walls and in front of them. We do not want that water hanging back in that retained soil, so that's why we use free draining stone wherever there's water. Top blocks with fences behind there. I think it's a much cleaner look. It's a much safer wall, much safer fence around there. Really adds a lot of value to this property. Touched a little bit earlier on seating walls and amphitheaters. This is just a quick one here, actually over in Wisconsin. I mean, very short walls, but they added some lights underneath there, a lot of accents. I think the end result was pretty good, even though this is not a very expensive retaining wall. We are seeing more and more, you know, stadium seating projects. This is a current project right now in New Jersey at a high school. So instead of bleachers, they wanted a nice durable cast in place, or precast concrete steps, seating systems. They've got some custom columns, some freestanding blocks. They've got custom lighting in our blocks as well. I think once this project is finished, it's going to be fantastic. So support tools from ReCon. We do have a design and construction manual. It kind of goes step by step through the installation process. There's a lot of design information on there. We've got a nice block catalog in there. We do have a lot of standard details and CAD templates on our website if you are an engineer or an architect looking for information on that. We do have an on-staff engineer who can assist with, retaining wall related questions. And we also have a lot of really competent RCP staff members who can help you with bidding and installation and just general information on our product. We do have a free analysis software with which, as you input your wall geometry, your heights, your site geometries, your back slopes, your toe slopes, your surcharges, the presence of water, you can change your soil parameters, and it'll kick out either gravity or a reinforced cross section for you. We do have testing with GeoGrids in Centene, Strata, and Mirify, as well as GeoStar. Here's a reinforced cross section again, using our 24-inch deep units, and whatever grid was chosen was SF55. This analysis software also can do global stability analysis on both gravity and reinforced wall systems. And from an installation standpoint, we've got a ton of PowerPoints, a ton of resources for installers who are looking to install ReCon for the first time. Versus a small block system, obviously ReCon is much larger, which means we're much more expensive. We're a more expensive product per square foot, or more to get to the job site in terms of freight. However, the value that we can add to your customer in terms of space out in front of their wall, really tucking that wall up against the property line, you can definitely, as an installer, install this product with a lot less crew. You can install it a lot faster than traditional small block methods. We do have a lot of, again, contractor-friendly block shapes that will help you speed up your install. I think having the ability to stain our walls in whatever color that your customer would like is a huge benefit to us. So I think I'm out of time here. I do want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to the RCP team for having me out here or having me do this presentation. If you do have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to your RCP rep. You can email me at bhensler@reconwalls.com. Thanks again for your time, and hope everyone has a great day.